I'm giving somebody the blues today.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to dive deep into a discussion that was started with the death of 2XKO. Maximilian says fighting games shouldn't be for the FGC. We're going to watch the video, we're going to break it down, but that's the premise. What do you guys think about that idea? There's reasonings as to why people would agree, but then there's reasons why people would disagree, and we'll try to cover all of it today. The lead up to this is the death of multiple games. There was a tweet that I seen that said, "Welcome to fighting games in 2026. We got a game that shut down after 1 year of going live, a game people forgot about almost immediately after release, a game that was rushed with many missing features and unfinished characters, and a game with a botched PC port and bad matchmaking." Who in the comment section can predict what all four of these games are? I can only look at one of these and say Tokon, maybe Mortal Kombat for the other one, but this is the current state of fighting games. Every single one seems to have something wrong with it. Street Fighter 6 developers are unwilling to remove throw loops. Tekken 8 developers are unwilling to stop stancifying the characters. All the other games are having some kind of problem where it's lag, whether it's netcode, whether it's cheaters. Regardless though, the three fighting games that kind of sparked this initial conversation is Invincible versus 2XKO and Marvel Tokon. Mostly what's happening on the PC side of things, PlayStation is kind of flawless. For Invincible versus, the beta was riddled with plugging and disconnects, and then once the game came out, it seemed like no one cares. There's a couple of people who play it, but on Steam, there's almost enough to say no one. 65 players is the peak for the 24 hours. Steam isn't everything. There's still a whole world of PlayStation out there, but 65 is crazy. Mortal Kombat usually has low Steam numbers as well, but we know the mass majority of their player base come from PlayStation, right? So there are some games like that, and we'll see if Invincible versus posts some more sales updates, and we can see, was it able to capture that silent casual demographic that Mortal Kombat has a stranglehold on. We won't know until more time passed, but what we do know is that Invincible versus also laid off a couple of their employees a little while ago. People usually write it off and say no big deal because this happens to a lot of games when they release, but knowing everything we know about fighting games and also that game, it may be a big deal. 2XKO didn't seem like a big deal until the developers put out that blog post. For Marvel Tokon, the pre-release of that game got cooked because it was blocked in 132 countries by Sony. And then on release and also throughout the beta, the PC version was diabolical. Now, even though they did about 3 updates so far, the PC players, some of them are still complaining. I know that matchmaking is much faster, but the pre-release hype of that game is definitely gone. They could have reached 60, 70,000 concurrent players, but that's probably not likely because their concurrent players on the beta, even with all the problems, was almost as high as Street Fighter. So they had some great potential, and maybe with the Marvel characters and DLC reveals later on, they could bring back some people and continue that hype. But they got to move fast because the player count is falling on PC with 5,161. And then also on the Japanese side of things, sales wise, Marvel Tokon basically flopped. The game only sold 2,814 physical copies in the first week in Japan. That is lower than Arc System's previous works like Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue. That is wild. Now they could still survive because we know Tekken has a practically non-existent Japanese audience, and the majority of their popularity comes from overseas. So hopefully Tokon can hit that stride as well. Now as for 2XKO, super hyped. The whole FGC was focused on this game back in like 2020, 2021. Everyone was watching the dev diaries they were doing, but the game took too long. More people started to care less and less after some of the other fighting games started to release. And then the game released with a small roster. It was kind of focused on the arcane characters, and it had many problems. The devs ended up laying off some staffs. People kind of shrugged it off. And then here we are later where they announced the full closure of the game. Now, all of that is what sparked the conversation that's kind of going on right now. Millions across the internet participated in this conversation. Some was weirdly celebrating the downfall of 2XKO, which I don't know why people would do that, period, because if one fighting game dies, it spells bad news for other publishers who would be considering jumping in and making a game, right? Ubisoft, EA, some of those studios will never make a fighting game because they see all of them dying. So I never really celebrate anything like this. Even if I don't like the game, I understand what type of ramifications it could have on the industry. Other people were very sad. I seen people post a picture of 2XKO tattoos they got and how much time they spent playing the game. It was a lot of sadness online because there are people who do love the game, and they wanted it to succeed, and they wanted to compete, they wanted to travel, and they just wanted to play the game casually. But also, there was another group of players who started to play the blame game. A lot of people blamed fingers at Riot Games, most notably Ludwig, which made a tweet, "Bro, Riot is insane. It feels like Mark Morrow has the company in a chokehold where if their game doesn't make $1 billion instantly, he shuts it down. No community building, no thoughts of making a beautiful game, just pure profit or die." That tweet got 2 million views with 51,000 likes. With this, you really saw the FGC kind of let loose. There was another tweet that I seen that said 2XKO is dead, Tokon got Sony DMR, Street Fighter 6 refused to change, NRS threatens to make another game, Bob is fat, it's rough out here. All of these different posts is only a small percentage of what's really out there. And then of course Maximilian was going to eventually give his take, and then that was going to be posted everywhere for people to also have a take on. Here I'll go ahead and play the video, then we could talk about some of the things he say in it and what people say about it.
Point forward, I don't think fighting games should be made for the FGC. I don't like the idea, because a fighting game that's made specifically for the FGC, you run into problems like this, where it's specifically made for the FGC, and that net is small, like is very small. The FGC has always found the most, I would say, popular community fighting games were not made for the FGC, my dude. They were made just to be appealing, interesting, great games. And they found their audiences. The FGC came to them, right? They grew communities because...
I'll stop there and I'll say this. I do agree with this. I think that a lot of the pillars of the FGC, all of these just started off with developers wanting to make something awesome. You could talk about Tekken, how Harada said in Tekken 3 and Tekken 5 that this is just a casual game. This game is just for everyone. We want people to be able to play with family, with friends, and just have a great time. But then there was people who loved the game so much they wanted to push it to the next level. They started calculating frame data, archiving it on the websites, competing with other players, building locals, building tournaments. Street Fighter did the same thing in their lane. Mortal Kombat had a little bit of that going on. All of these fighting games just started off as fun, but it seems like some of these fighting games are trying to skip all of that and just get to the competition. But you have to sell the players, and not the FGC, but just the players, on the idea of your game, on the fun aspect of it. But let's keep going.
People loved it so much, they didn't grow them because the games were competitively viable, bitch. That has never been the point. The point is that people like this shit so much that they are determined to be the best. You know? Like that is what a fighting game community is. That people want to show up so much that it doesn't matter how fucked up the game is. There are others that need to get their asses beat, and I have to put them in their place. They've been talking shit. Like, this is the foundation of what a fighting game community is.
I also will say, on the topic of fighting games not needed to be balanced, I also think this is a good point, because in the year 2026, people put a lot of focus on balance, whether it be characters, mechanics, or just the overall game. But some of the most beloved fighting games out there are wildly imbalanced. And I do think that the social media aspect is changing and kind of corrupting a lot of what fighting games are supposed to be. But sometimes you just got to remember why you play them. For fun. Sometimes the developers have to remember why they make them, for fun, and then everything else can come later. But let's listen to the rest of this. Here's the end of it.
Doesn't matter like how competitively viable it is, how balanced, nobody gives a shit. As long as the game is fun and enjoyable and has things to fall in love with, people will fall in love with it so much that it becomes their entire fucking personality, and they just play the shit out of it, dude.
With this video, people immediately clapped back, some people, and they were saying that 2XKO did not do this. 2XKO did not make a game that was like for the FGC and for competition, and that's the reason why it's failed. That's one angle you could look at this, because, you know, it's up for debate, right? Did they make the game for the FGC, or did they make it for fun? It seems like they were marketing a lot towards the FGC and they had FGC guys make it, but how far did that marketing actually reach? Junya also commented on this as well and says, I think devs should make a game they want to make and not for anyone. Tekken Tag Tournament 2 was for the competitors, was for the top competition. That's why they love it. It was not for casuals. Tekken 7 was kind of for everyone, going back to what Tekken 5 was. Tekken 8 is only for new players and only casuals, and it's not for legacy at all. So even with Tekken, you can see how when the developers make a game for a specific type of player base, it either results in low sales or massive controversy. So that's an example there. There was another person who made a tweet, and this was tying Smash into the equation. Of course, one of the most casual fighting games of all time, but also most successful. Everything Max says here is a perfect counter argument to what HBox said yesterday. Melee was never designed to be the game players turned it into years after the fact. By trying to intentionally create that byproduct, you're setting yourself up to fail in the long run. Games like Mortal Kombat, Smash, and even some like the Dragon Ball Z and Naruto games, these aren't what we usually think of when we think of like a fighting game, but they kind of represent this conversation where you just make something that's a party game, something that's fun, something that even a mom would buy. Moms go out and buy Mortal Kombat and give it to the family, and then that's how they grow up playing Mortal Kombat. And then the cycle repeats over and over again. Really, these conversations, there is no right or wrong. It's just a lot of people looking at so many fighting games all fall, some to the same thing, some to totally new obstacles. But we don't want this to continue happening. Like I said earlier, we want new fighting games from new IPs. We don't just want it to be Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and Tekken until the sun burns out. We would like for more variety, but when it's produced, they have to do it in a way to where they can survive, where they can live. And that's really the essence of what this conversation is all about. Hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and bye-bye.